Welcome to Mindset Mentoring for Athletes, Families, and Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Coach Chuck. There's a ceiling that quietly governs every life. It is not financial, it is not circumstantial, it is not educational, it is internal. Your mindset determines your ceiling, and today's conversation explores that truth through the lens of entrepreneurship, financial growth, identity, and ownership. Because achievement is rarely about strategy alone, it's about who you believe you are capable of becoming. So stay tuned for that conversation. Parents today are carrying a weight that most generations never even had to name. Anxiety is rising, depression is rising, and teen suicide is now one of the leading causes of death amongst young people. And here's what really gets said out loud. Parents, you struggle too. You're trying to lead your family in a world that's changed faster than anyone prepares you for, and you love your kids deeply, yet sometimes wonder if what worked for you is enough for them. I'm Coach Chuck Barnhart, and I spent nearly 40 years as an educator and mindset mentor, and I've watched this shift up close. I've also lived it as a father of 4 children. My son Billy and I are launching a family mentorship because transformation doesn't happen in isolation. Teens don't need fixing. Families need leadership, language, and tools that bring them back together. This mentorship is designed for parents and teens walking the journey together, guided by experience, faith, and practical mindset training. And if you're part of the senior generation, a grandparent, a mentor, coach, or trusted voice, I want to ask something of you. Please consider sharing this with the families you know. Sometimes the invitation carries more weight when it comes from someone they trust. And somewhere out there is a family that needs to hear the message. This isn't for everyone, but for the right families, it changes everything. You can learn more by going to thechampionsmindsetmentorship.com. Welcome back. My guest today is Kenny Ingersoll, entrepreneur, business owner, financial professional, speaker, mentor, and what many know him as the money mindset and dream big coach. Through Ingersoll Enterprises, Kenny has dedicated his work to empowering others to avoid the painful reflection of, if I had only known then what I know now. His passion is simple but powerful: to empower others to build financial clarity, personal ownership, and long-term vision earlier in life. Kenny teaches that growth is not accidental. It is driven by belief. When a person shifts from "I hope this works" to "I'll figure this out," behavior changes, action accelerates, consistency increases, quitting decreases. Yet Kenny is not speaking from theory. He openly acknowledges that even today he sometimes wrestles with the internal voice that says, "It did not work before. Why should this time be different?" That honesty makes this conversation real. In this episode, we explore identity-based achievement, separating response from reaction during stress, the pressures facing teenagers today, and why ownership transforms hard lessons into building seasons. This is a conversation about ceilings and how to raise them. Kenny, welcome to the show.
Chuck, thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure. So I always begin the show the same way. I ask my guests to just kind of give us a little snapshot of who you are, where you kind of were brought up, a little bit about your childhood and background that way, and then we can kind of get a clearer picture and jump into the heart of the conversation.
My name is Kenny Ingersoll. I was raised by 2 entrepreneurs, so I was bit with the entrepreneurial bug early. I just took quite a while to figure out what that looked like for me, what my path was. I tried this, I tried that. I had a few jobs along the way, started a couple companies, closed a couple companies, and then I find where I'm at now in the financial services and coaching industry, and it clicked, and here we are, and it's been a wonderful roller coaster ride.
Fantastic. You know, excuse me, and my audience I know will Well, forgive me, but I woke up this morning with laryngitis is settling on. So I'll let you do most of the talking. Get you feeding you some of the questions I have for you. You teach that mindset determines your ceiling, and you and I are right on the same page with that. Now, you said you were brought up in a family with both your parents were entrepreneurs, so that is a unique mindset there. Entrepreneurs have that. Do you really think that was something you kind of picked up from them, or was there part of a conscious kind of embedded lessons from your parents about the values of entrepreneurship? Where did that kind of originate, do you think?
I think it was both growing up because I saw the flexibility they had. I saw the growth. It wasn't normal 9 to 5, you know, regular routine or anything like that. It was different. I knew something was different, and I didn't quite fully understand it, but I knew that there was something different, and there was something that I liked. I liked what I saw, and having that way of thinking and that discipline that comes with it, because um, what I tell my kids a lot is with privilege comes responsibility, so being entrepreneurs, being business owners and stuff, you have the added responsibilities. You've got to go do the work yourself. Nobody's telling you when to be at work or when to clock in or anything like that. And so there's that added responsibility and that added discipline. And if you look at it in the wrong way, it could really drag you down. If you look at it like a to-do list, a checklist, or a chore, versus the privilege and opportunity that it is, it's going to put a sour taste in your mouth, or going to not live up to the potential, or you won't live up to the potential that that opportunity has available.
Um, Entrepreneurship, um, the very nature of it, there's a lot of emotions. A lot of those emotions can be tied into the idea of risk because you're taking risk by the very nature of entrepreneurship. And with risk, and the degree of risk can vary greatly. But regardless, with that risk, there's some strong emotions attached, and oftentimes fear is that. Lots of different levels of that. So how do you, or how have you dealt with that in your own life during that, your entrepreneurial journey? What what is it that has been able to kind of stare down that fear, or whatever the other emotions are that come with that idea of taking risk?
Yeah, so you're taking risks no matter what. Because um, I'm in Utah, and I know Utah is a at-will work state. So if I had a quote unquote safe job, I could be let go anytime. So I still have that risk regardless, or you're taking a risk every time you step out on the street or drive in your car, so just how do you approach that risk? Do you find it worth the potential outcome, or is it too much for you? There are I'm not a huge adrenaline junkie. I'll use an analogy. I love analogies, so I might use those quite a bit, but I'm not gonna go sign up to do 100 skydives, because that's too risky for me. I can't take that. But I've worked at a place where I've been around high voltage electricity, and I've got a degree of comfort, if you will, in that. To others that's beyond that's too risky for them. So is is it a comfort level? How do you approach the risk? Is it not worth the potential reward? Is it too much to bear or to burden or anything like that? So I didn't see the risk of entrepreneurship as too much or more than the potential reward. I saw it worth the reward and the growth. Even if I failed and had to close the business again and blah blah blah, it was still worth it because of who I met, who I grew to become, who I um, connected with, all the experiences I had. To me, that was worth all the risk. It still is every day, taking that risk every day, um, and being able to see where life leads in that way and to grow myself because it took a while for me to understand and to see the growth that I have. You don't see it every day, but when you look back or when you really ponder on it, you can definitely tell.
You know, and thank you for pointing out the idea that there's risk in everything. And lots of times people don't see that, right? There's risk in the non-action that so many people take. There's, as you said, there's that risk of showing up every day for the same job, believing that it's always going to be there for you, and then suddenly it's not. And they don't view that as risky. It's and then it's something that happens to them. So that idea that this is something that's safe isn't always an accurate depiction, but it's really comes down to how we our own perceptions, right, of what might be viewed as risky for one person isn't for another, and that speaks to exactly what we're talking about in this whole idea of mindset. So why don't you kind of give us your understanding and when we talk about mindset, what it is you are really kind of referring to and what you are trying to do with people that you work with in relationship to this idea of mindset.
Yeah, so my focus with mindset is around money and finances. And, I'm a student of my own teaching. Um, I'm still learning and stuff, but understanding again the risks that you're taking or not taking, do you do you risk learning more or investing or um, putting it in there? A lot of people they see they see investments as expenses. They have that incorrect perspective about it, and they think it's risky to. Well, what if I go to this seminar and it doesn't help, or what if I invest this $100 and I lose it all, kind of thing, and what if I buy this book and it doesn't help. They look at the cost of the book versus the reward that they can get from it, and it comes from a place of lack. They think uh, they're just looking at their bank account per se. I've only got this much in my bank account. If I buy this book, then that money's gone forever. And oftentimes we don't remember or think about that money is abundant and we can go get more. More can come into our bank account. More can come in through many different channels, whether our job or a side hustle or, whatever the case may be, or an investment if you have investments or income streams multiple. So a lot of that is the way you look at it, and then the concepts of money. Where I focus with the money is you can understand the concepts, but how it relates to where you're at and how you approach it is what a lot of people struggle with, and myself was one of them for quite a while. I'm like, okay, I have this printer. It looks fancy and pretty and blah blah blah, and it can do this, this, and this, but I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to apply it. I don't know what these buttons do, to get the most out of this printer. I understand this concept and this concept and this concept. I know what their definitions are, and I've read about them and had them explained to me, but I don't know how to apply those in my life. I don't understand what they will do for me and being able to make that change to be able to get the most out of that. If, this is a new device for me, I know. Or here, another better one. I've got an iPhone 16. It's not the most up to date, but I grew up with a brick phone. If I didn't take the time to understand, okay, the brick phone I was comfortable with because that's what I knew. But this has better features, and if I'm allow myself to use this and apply this, I'll get a lot more out of this phone than I will my brick phone. The brick phone was great for its time frame. And that's the same with money. A lot of the concepts that we have are from way back here with brick phone. And we're comfortable with brick phone, but we don't allow ourselves to update the software or be open to the new updated products, services, concepts, tools that are out there because we're comfortable with brick phone. Brick phone works for grandpa and great grandpa or whatever. You apply it to the financial concept, but so brick phone is good enough for me. You know, if brick phone worked for grandpa, I'm gonna stick with brick phone and not go to the iPhone 16 or 17 or 18 or wherever we're at today.
You said something in there which is so true when we talk about mindset and everything we do and our and particularly in money. We get so many of our beliefs and understanding and attitudes associated with money from it's been handed down to us, right? We model it, we get it from our parents, grandparents, what have you, because that's kind of been our world. And we don't always realize where some of those beliefs have come from, right? But they're so important. Both my parents were Depression era children, right? So that was a dramatic time frame that really shaped a whole generation's view of money, risk taking, entrepreneurship, all these things. And fortunately, as I got older in my own life, I began to understand more and realize where some of my beliefs were coming from. And then I want that awareness helps me shape them. But I still deal with some of those, like, you know, I think you had said in some of the information you gave about that, that voice. If it didn't work the last time, right? Why will it work this time? Or, boy, do you really want to take that risk? And just within the last year, going back towards this past summer, I didn't take a risk that I had seriously contemplated taking and decided I was going to fund something on my own instead of borrow money, use other people's money to make money. And that decision cost me a lot of money. Um, I know, no regrets, none of that, move on, lesson learned. But it went back to that old, like some of those old beliefs don't go into debt, don't go into debt, right? Like, especially once I got out of debt, I didn't want to go back into debt. Um, and that, there are those things that we have to learn to identify. So, a long way, a long way around to kind of ask you this question about how do you help people come see you, work with you to identify those things? Like, is there a particular process that you go through to begin to help them identify what those beliefs are and educate them in terms of like what good risk is and what good debt might be versus bad debt and things like that? Can you talk a little bit about some of those issues?
Yeah, so I don't have a set exact process. I take them kind of along the same general guidelines, so a little bit of a standard, but it's case by case because everybody's different. But starting helping them understand where they are currently. A lot of people don't even think about thinking about where their money mindset is or where it came from. They didn't even register that I have a money mindset. They're just built in, kind of out of sight, out of mind sort of thing. So I I start to ask questions and help them figure out where their money mindset is. And I'll ask them a series of questions, what about this? What about that? Like one of them, we'll talk about their favorite thing if it's they want a new car or truck or they want a house or they want a this or that or something, something material in this case. I'll say, okay, let's say let's say I've got that exactly what you want, and it's $5 million. What's your first reaction? If they gasp for air, they're like, "Oh my gosh, $5 million," and have sticker shock. That's a good indication of where their money mindset is. It's in the more the lax side. Like, oh no, $5 million, I'm never gonna get there, and they're comparing it to their bank account. Like how is this bank account gonna get up here to this $5 million? How am I gonna do that? That's no way that's gonna happen. Or if they're like, $5 million, all right, I don't know where it's gonna come from, but we'll figure it out. Then I know that they're open to the possibility and they're open to um, suggestions and options, and they're willing to do the work and stuff and not just shut it down because they're like, never gonna happen. Then then they've already shut it down essentially. So then we have to start to digest. Okay, maybe let's go to something smaller. Maybe a car. Maybe it's a $50,000 car. Then we'll just go to that step. Okay, what if we try this? Then we'll start to um, take baby steps for them, whatever their need or handhold, whatever you want to call it, to get them to that next level. Okay, we're not ready for the $5 million house yet, but we can work on the $50,000 car. Okay, they can see that. Okay, well, they're open to that at least. They think that's a possibility for them and stuff, and um, then we can work in the process, and then once we get that plan in place and their mind is more open, then they can start working towards that $5 million house, and then we could throw in some more things because we don't want to overwhelm them at first. And we'll,
You know, um, as you talk it through there, I began to think too. A lot of around money in particular. There's a lot of awareness, a lot of education, a lot of reframing that needs to go on. And uh, in the intro, I think I talked about. I mentioned that you want to empower people to be able to learn this stuff younger. And something you just said in there made me think about my own kids who are young adults now. And um, my youngest son and one of his friends, uh, they're tenants of mine as well, but had to have a conversation recently. And my own kids will, have said to me, and I've seen it, I didn't see it when they're young enough, but their financial literacy, and this is, I've been paying more attention to it now, their generation is like zero. Like they have no financial literacy at all. And I've started doing some YouTube videos and all because the more I dug into this, it's like this really is a serious problem. They not just financial literacy, as you said, mindset, right? We would talk about that. Their whole beliefs around money are detrimental. So my youngest, one of his good friends, we had to have a serious conversation about he's he's about to become a new dad, and for somebody his age, he has made some pretty good money over the last 2 or 3 years, and he's got nothing to show for it. And now he's beginning to have all these fear and anxiety because he's about to be a new dad, and like, oh my God, I haven't like prepared. So, do you see that like I do as a problem for younger people? I mean, you kind of indicated that you do because you said
Oh
you,
yeah.
yeah. So,
Unfortunately, everywhere.
so what do we do about that? So give us some of your takes on my audience. We've got a bunch of parents out there. So, what would be your advice to parents or even their teenagers who might be hearing you?
So my first thought as you were talking that came to me is I believe it's an old Chinese proverb that I refer to a lot is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. So when you were talking about your son's friend and he's oh crap, now what? It's like okay, this is you up to this point. Now moving forward, you can make these changes and start improving. This happened, learn these lessons back here. You know, you did this good, you did this good, you could work on this. This is not a shameful bash kind of conversation. It's a this is what happened, this is what we can learn, this is what we can improve, to improve conversation, not to bash conversation, whether from somebody else or from yourself, because we're our own worst critics. So we're like, oh, I should have done this and I should have done this and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, okay, this is what happened. This is what I wish I did. This is how I can do better going forward. But at this point, you could start now, start fresh, if you will, with the lessons learned and start applying those and making those changes and being open to those changes and then start applying those and moving forward and growing and progressing starting now.
Yeah. Yeah, see that those are some of the things that just are not formally taught, right? And um, it's a shame because there's a whole generation going that aren't getting some of those basic skills, not just the actual money knowledge skills, but there's a whole thinking process around money, and it seems like so many people are well. I don't know, boy. There's so many, cultural things that play into this too, and we can like start deflecting responsibility, but ultimately, this is one of the things that comes back to a lot of the mindset stuff I do is I got to take responsibility for myself, right? I have to control my thinking. I have to do the homework. I have to take the initiative and you know, learn the things. Um, and that's kind of the message I try to bring to people, right? It's like you have to do that, and that leads me to this question I had when I saw some of your, the information that you gave beforehand, is this idea of hope, right? And hope has always fascinated me, right? It's an incredible word. It's an amazing word, right? Without hope, people perish, right? Hope is keeps people alive. Hope is both a noun and a verb. But so many people think of hope as it's something they do passively. Like, oh, I hope that this event happens. I hope that this happens to me. But they don't put any action into that, right? There's not, they don't do anything to kind of make that hope become reality. And that's that missing piece in my view, where hope is incredibly important. You got to have the hope of tomorrow, but hope without action it just withers and dies. Do you want to approach that subject at all?
So yeah, um, as you were talking, it made me think of air. You know, air is abundant. We can't see it. We can feel it when the wind is blowing and things like that, or when it's cold and you walk outside in the middle of winter and we know it's there, but we know it's there. We don't think about it, we don't question it or anything like that, but we don't apply that to money or opportunities or abundance or, growth or potential for ourselves, because we can't see it right away. And just like you said with hope, if I hold still and plug my nose and don't breathe, all this air does me no good. But if I take the action of breathing, and partaking of the abundance of air that's around me, I've got to do something. If I hold my breath for a while and stuff, then I'm gonna gasp and it's gonna take more effort and stuff, kind of like if you're in debt or something, it's gonna take a little more effort to catch up, but you got to put in the work. But the abundance is there. We just may not see it with our physical eyes. We can see it if we allow ourselves to with our mental eyes. Um, I forget exactly who said it originally, and I'm going to paraphrase, but they said things are created three times. First in your mind, then on paper, then in reality. So if you see something in your mind, and this could be negative or positive, if you see debt in your mind, you're going to find debt. It's going to turn out, it's going to come to you, it'll show up. You'll find a way to attract it. But if you see it positively, opportunities, money, you know, um, some a lot of times it's not always compensated with money. It's, opportunities, it's connections, it's learning, it's growth, it's good health, it's a working car, it's a roof over our heads, so we gotta be open and remember those abundant blessings that we have as well. But seeing it in your mind is the first step. So if you're totally closed out, this is how it's been all my life. It's never going to change. This is blah, blah, blah. I'm too old. It's too late. All those sorts of things. So if you're closed off in your mind, then you're done essentially. But if you're open to the possibility and you start to allow yourself to, okay, yeah, this could happen for me. I just need to put in a little effort. Okay, I I want to do this. Who do I know? Maybe I'll go read this book about it. Put in some sort of action to start, even if it's reading a book, watching a YouTube video, some sort of action. Then it'll lead to something bigger and something more and something more. It'll ripple effect into something bigger. And then you'll be able to start opening your mind a little bit more into bigger possibilities and recognizing more opportunities. And even though you may not see them come to fruition for a while, you'll see them in your mind. Um, like Edwin C. Barnes with Thomas Edison. Um, just to recap the story real quick, Edwin C. Barnes had a vision, had a goal that he was going to be in business with Thomas Edison, not work for Thomas Edison, be a business partner and with Edison, and he didn't even he never even met Edison, didn't have the money to buy a train ticket to Edison's office from where he was, but he um, hopped on a freight train. He figured out how to get there. He put in the steps. He put in some action. And then years at Edison's office working for Edison, the opportunity came. It was disguised as work, and Barnes wasn't sure what the opportunity was going to be or when that chance would happen, but he always saw in his mind that Edison and him were going to be business partners, and he just took the next step and the next step and step, and then he finally saw with his physical eyes. So having that belief and then putting in some sort of action to back up that belief, which then in turn backs up that action, which backs up that belief, and so on and so forth. A huge ripple effect.
Yeah, there's, boy, your answer triggered a whole bunch of thoughts in my head. Um, so I'm going to try to see if I can organize them a little bit here as I go. But and I don't remember exactly what it was, but one of the things you said made me think of the movie Evan Almighty, and Morgan Freeman. He plays God in that movie. But in that, there's a clip of him, and he's talking to, I think it's Evan, whoever it is, and he says, you know, if somebody prays for patience, do you think God gives them patience, or does He give them an opportunity to be patient? If somebody prays for courage, do you think God gives them courage, or does He give them an opportunity to be courageous? And I, a lot of that comes back to our mindset stuff in that people don't see sometimes that opportunity that's being provided as an answer to a prayer or a hope, right, that they had, and they miss it. There's a activity I used to do real simple with my students, a couple of them. First, I would write the letters OPPORTUNITYISNOWHERE. Now, when you put all those letters together on the board, I ask them what it says, and like very high percentage read it as opportunity is nowhere. But you can also read that exactly the same letters and everything as opportunity is now here. And that little shift changes everything. And it's really about perspective and all. And it comes, you know, down to beliefs and all these other things. And another activity I used to do, this is going to lead into the second part of the thing that you said about, you know, ideas that start in our head. So I would take students out, start in our classroom, and just, all right, just write down. I'm going to give you like 2 minutes, write down everything you see. I take them outside. You got 2 minutes, look around, write down everything you see. Take them back inside, different part of the building. 2 minutes, write down everything you see. We come back in, we get a list and said, look at all these things you wrote down. And you're like, 98% of them are man created things. And I said, every single one of those things started right here. They started as an idea. At one point, they didn't exist, and somebody created it. And then I would even say, some of the things you wrote down, like a tree, some people would argue that that started as an idea in God's head, and then He created it, right? So it always starts as an idea, and then people have to have the belief that they can make that idea reality, and then a set of plans to follow through to make that a reality. So when you are, talking to people in your financial end, if you have strategies for them, you have to kind of help them develop the right belief systems, right? So, what are some of those essential beliefs that you have found that you need to help people attain in order to reach whatever goal it is that they are, you know, shooting for in their life?
The first one and the biggest one is their belief that it's possible for them. A lot of people think, oh, it's possible for this person, or because they live here, or because they know this person, or because they're related to that person, or they got lucky, or, they're younger, whatever. They don't think it's possible for them. They know it's possible because they see it on the street, whether it's a car or a house or whatever, or they'll see it in the movies, or they'll see it from somebody they know, or somebody they've heard about. Yeah, my brother told me about this guy that he met and his best friend Bob and blah blah blah. But they don't believe it's possible for them for whatever reason. Whether they're too old or it hasn't worked before or they've tried and failed or they've never tried or they don't have any money or they live on the wrong side of the tracks or it was raining on a Tuesday morning 10 years ago or whatever belief they associate with that or reason they associate with that belief, but they don't believe it's possible for them. And that's the biggest hiccup that I have found in all my clients and teaching is believing it's possible for yourself. You know it's possible. You got to start letting yourself know that it's possible for you. Again, going back to those baby steps, even if you can't believe that you'll get the $5 million house, maybe you could start with the $50,000 car. Okay, I can do this. And then then figuring out the how, they're hung up on that a lot. But I don't know how, or I don't have the right tools, or blah 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 blah. That'll come. You start with the belief and you take the first step, then you'll get there. Or another analogy I use a lot is road trip. If I'm driving from Utah to Florida, I can't see the entire road. I don't know if there's going to be a red light in Vermont somewhere, or not Vermont, but Alabama somewhere, or if there's road construction, or, I can't see the whole road, but I'm not going to let that stop me from taking that trip. I'm going to get in my car and drive focused on the next mile, and then the next mile, and then the next mile. And if there's a detour, I'll figure out the detour. I might get delayed. I might get stopped for a little bit. I might get a setback or a rejection or a failure of some sort. Um, Side note here, I love what Grant Cardone says, and I'm sure others say it. You never really fail unless you quit. So setbacks and failures are not really failures unless you quit. But anyways, they get stuck on the how. They don't have the whole thing mapped out, or they don't have every single step ironed out perfectly and all the right tools and resources in place, so they don't start. But they don't need to have everything figured out at first. They just need to start, even if that's borrowing somebody else's belief, even if that's watching a YouTube video or go getting a book from the library that I've mentioned before. The and another side note, sorry, tangents, but there's a lot of great resources that are free. And we've been programmed because of all the bombardment and everything else and stuff to undervalue free. Now, there's a lot of crap, sorry, that's free as well, but there's a lot of valuable tools and resources that are available for free. Your local library, YouTube has a lot of great content, or there's even some free Audible books, or free webinars and seminars and things like that are sometimes free. So we undervalue it because it is free. I'm not saying that everything is good that's free, but there is a lot of value in free. Anyways, so those are the two biggest things that I find that a lot of people get stuck on is um, believing it's possible for them and then having everything figured out.
Thank you for saying that because that possible for them. My my main keynote that I give when I speak to schools or organizations, what have you, is called planting possibility because it is that, right? People don't believe things are possible for them. They know it's possible, but they kind of doubt it's possible for them. And one of the stories I tell my keynote, and one of the things I try to do with the students I had over the years, and now people I work with, mentor, and such, is this idea of experiencing possibility. So the very concept of planning possibility, really that original seed goes all the way back to 1987 when I'd gone out to Tony Robbins, California. My purpose with going out there was to meet Tony Robbins. Like I wanted to meet him and actually have him give me a job. And that's a story that's too long for this episode. But I found myself outside a ballroom in Los Angeles, waiting to go into the first night of his 4-day seminar, the Fear into Power Firewalk Experience. Now, I knew walking on fire was possible. I couldn't wait to watch people walk on burning coals. Like, I wanted to really see that. I wasn't so sure I was going to be there at the end of the night. But at the end of the night, I was there. And when I made it across those burning coals, it was indescribable. I tell people, like, I don't really know what the emotion was. I think it was like a fusion of all kinds of emotions at once into this new emotion. It was incredibly powerful. But what I came to understand was I experienced possibility. Now, you don't need to walk across burning coals to experience possibility. I've had students who took standardized tests for years, did really poorly, and all of a sudden we turn it around and they're scoring average. Like, that's possibility. You didn't think it was possible. We showed you it's possible. That's possibility. Little things like that are examples of experiencing possibility. So what you said there is so powerful, and it's trying to help them experience it so it becomes real, so it becomes a a belief. I know we're kind of running out end of our time together, but I want to give you a chance to kind of give any final thoughts. It could be related to what we just kind of talking about, this idea of experiencing and getting people to realize all the things they have experienced already that at one point in their life they didn't think was possible for themselves. You want to kind of add on to that at all?
Yeah, what I would say you're at right now is, a couple things. One, start now. Yeah, like I mentioned before, what happened has happened, learn from it, grow from it. But wherever you're at, start now. And then be open to those possibilities and be open to mentorship, whether that's from Chuck or me or Tony Robbins or a book or a YouTube video or somebody that's further ahead in the journey of where you want to go, but being open to the possibilities and the mentorship. And those are the two big things that I would end with is start now and being open to those possibilities.
That's great. I'm glad you actually mentioned the last part because, like, that idea of finding coaches, mentors, other people really should never really end. I am wrapping up a year-long mentorship with Dan Clark, who's one of the foremost public speakers in the world. That was an opportunity that was presented to me that, like, well, dang, of course I got to take advantage of that, right? I mean, but it was because I'm also open to that. I'm seeking that. There are, you know, my gosh, so many people who know so much more about so many different things than I do that I want to seek them out. I want to find that out. So thank you for bringing that up because it's actually a great way to kind of end this. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, the best way to find you or find anything about Ingersoll, was it Ingersoll Enterprises? Was that the what it was? Or
Yeah, so IngersollEnterprises.com. That's my website, and that's got all my contact and socials and stuff. So that'd be the easiest way to find me.
fantastic. And we'll put that link in the description for the show so when it airs, people will be able to find you if they weren't learn any more. So really greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to have a conversation. It was very enjoyable.
Likewise, thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed it.
And again, with all the conversations I have, there are so many elements that every one of my guests share, right? And it's one of the reasons why I love having such a variety of people because you can begin to see that there are common elements that go into reaching those goals and whatever success means to you, being able to get there. There's certain things you have to do. At the bottom line, mindset is such an important part. You know, the mentorship program that I'm launching now, my son and I are launching, it's really about taking not just all the knowledge that I've accumulated over the years and the wisdom and the book knowledge and all that, but it is that experiential stuff and being able to help parents and your teenagers to take those experiences and knowledge, show you ways to actually like build those beliefs a lot quicker than the old ways. There are some powerful techniques we can do to take and create those new beliefs that you need to have much quicker. We can also, most importantly, show you how to find and weed out those that have been limiting you over these years. So there's processes that we can do and then help you build some of those character traits, etc., that are so necessary for long-term success in life. And parents, when you do this with your teenager, wow, I tell you, the origin of this came with a weekend at the family camp when my kids were older than they should have been, to be perfectly blunt, for my wife and I doing this. But they were in high school and college, and that again, it was the origin to this mentorship program because that couple days experience with my kids talking, doing some of these things that have worked into it was powerful in ways that our relationships grew that much more. And that was just in a couple day weekend. I'm talking something about something much longer and deeper than that. So if you want to learn more, I encourage you to go to the championsmindsetmentorship.com and look at all that information. And until the next time, I encourage you to go out there and live life to the fullest.